Hi everyone, it's Mrs. Bailey here and welcome to the Art Studio. Today we're going to be doing a painting inspired by an artist called Ton Schulten, and we're blending with chalk pastels. So chalk pastels are a special type of drawing medium. They're actually a painting medium that are very chalky to use. So it's just like drawing with normal chalk. If you don't have chalk pastels, you can get them from places like Shiploads and so on. You can use sidewalk chalk to do the same, but your colours just aren't going to be quite as bright. So just keep that in mind. And one of the real things about Ton Schulten's artwork is it is very, very bright. So to do this piece of artwork, I'm starting off, I'm drawing out some really simple shapes. So I'm drawing out some trees and some fields underneath and dividing up the sky as well. So you'll see I'm putting in some extra lines that I don't really need. The other unusual thing about this landscape is it's actually done in portrait style, which is quite unusual because usually when we're doing landscapes, obviously we turn a page. Now you can do it either way, it's totally up to you, but having a landscape done as a portrait makes it look a little bit more interesting sometimes. So what we're going to do with this piece is we're first of all drawing out really lightly with some on black cardboard and using a light chalk pastel to draw over the top. Now the great thing about this is if you think you've made a mistake or you don't like a shape you've got, it's okay, because if we're using the white chalk we can rub it out or blend it in so we don't really see it, and as you can see I'm laying on the chalks over the top quite thickly so you don't actually see any of the lines underneath. So it's really hard to make a mistake with your drawing, so feel free to draw whatever you want. The only thing I would suggest that you do is to draw simple shapes. So if you're drawing trees, for example, you're not looking at drawing every leaf, you're just looking at the shapes. Same with the background. I've just got some simple lines and I've just drawn it up. When you're putting on your chalk pastels, we want to keep the chalks really nice and bright, and I'm actually laying them on quite thickly. And you notice I just tapped off the excess onto my board and then I just wiped it away with a tissue or a damp paper towel, and that just helps keep everything nice and neat. When you're colouring in every section, I'm going to colour in every section on this piece of paper, and for each section I'm going to blend at least 2 colours. So you can blend similar colours that sit together on the colour wheel, and we talked about that in a previous video. They're called analogous colours. Or you can be a bit more bold and, you know, do a pink and a purple together. That's okay too. But you do need to blend the colours together. And that's what makes chalk pastels quite a special drawing medium, because they're actually they act more like a paint. I can mix a blue and a yellow and I can make a really cool colour green. If I had something like a crayon or an oil pastel, the colours would layer over the top, but they wouldn't actually blend to make a new colour. So chalk pastels you can actually sort of mix together to make new colours and new shades, which is a really fun thing to do. And particularly if you've got a small palette of colours, you can actually mix your colours and come up with a whole heap of different colours. So you can see for the ground, I'm not sticking to traditional colours. I'm actually using some really bright colours and mixing them together. Now usually I do the lightest colour first and then put the darker colour around the outside, but you can mix it up. I'm also trying not to touch my my chalk pastels too much. You can see I blended in a little bit with my finger, but I'm not sort of leaning my hand over it or resting on it. I'm trying to keep those colours as bright as possible, and that's the great thing about these. If you find you've rubbed them in too hard to the surface or you've blended them in too much, you can always go back and put another layer of colour over the top. So chalk pastels are also really good for layering up colour to get more intense colours. When I'm colouring in, you can see I'm sort of scribbling on in the background, making sure all the black's sort of covered up, but I'm not really particular about how I'm doing it. And, you know, I'm not laying it on in a particular direction, I'm just putting the colour down. So it looks a little bit messy, but we're going to do something at the end to tie it all together. So if you think about this painting in 3 stages, we've got the first layer, which is doing that outline with the white chalk. We've got a second layer, which is adding the colour, and our third layer is going to be creating the outlines over the top. To find out more about the artist that this artwork is inspired by, please click on the link below, and I'm going to give you a link to some of his artwork, so you can sort of see the different things that he colours. He is a landscape artist, but he does do a lot of buildings in his artwork as well. You could do this technique, however, with anything that you wanted to. So if you want to put mountains and houses in the background, you could. If you wanted to do an animal in the same way, you could. But one of the things that's good about his artwork is he does divide it off into simple shapes. So that's what you really need to look at. Have a look at whatever you want to draw and think about, well, what shapes can I see? Can I see some squares? Can I see some triangles? And wherever there's a new colour or a shadow, that's where you're going to put the line to divide it off. So as you can see, I'm cleaning up as I go along, which is really, really important when you're using chalk pastels. If you've got a piece of paper or a piece of newspaper at home that you can use to protect your surface you're working on, that would be really great. If you do accidentally get some of the chalk on your clothes, it's okay, it will wash out. It is just chalk after all, but keep your hands nice and clean when you're working, and try and keep your hands off your painting, which is the other reason why doing this in a portrait style is really, really handy, because you're less likely to lean your hands onto the surface that you're working on. So you can see on this piece, I actually drew over one of my lines. I didn't quite like where it was, and that's okay because you can't actually see where I had that line anymore. So if as you're going along you think, oh, that doesn't look quite right, or I want to make that tree rounder, or I want to change the shape of that tree, you can do that as you go along. If I'd drawn this out in grey lead pencil first, I would have the grooves from the grey lead pencil, which the chalks would sort of stick into, and it would be very obvious whether those lines are. So it's a really good idea to draw out with a lighter coloured chalk. So you can see I've finished my painting now. And now I'm just going in and adding some highlights. So I'm getting some nice bright yellow on the sides of the trees, like where the sun's going to be hitting that, just to make it look a little bit brighter. I've also going in with some darker colours just to darken up the shadows. So if you look at your piece and think it looks a bit flat, go back in and add some highlights either in white or black or in a darker colour. The final thing to make this piece come together and make it like a cubic piece of artwork, so this is very based in the cubism style of art, is to go in and outline my pieces. So I'm choosing to use black, and I'm using black chalk to go in and draw around the outsides of my shapes. If you don't have black chalk and you've got a black oil pastel, that would work really well. You could get away with a black permanent marker, but if you can keep it with the chalks, it sort of all fits together. The other option you could do, however, is I could choose to outline everything with a white chalk pastel as well, and that would look really good too. And it gives you this beautiful patchwork effect in the background. So that's it, that's how simple it is. You can choose any landscape to draw. It's all about laying down that colour to make it nice and vibrant. Now, one thing you do need to know about chalk pastels is they do need to be fixed, which means you need to keep them from smudging. And the best way to do that at home is, if you've got some hairspray, is to give your painting a spray of hairspray. And it will look a little bit scary because all your chalk will disappear and you think, oh no, I've ruined my painting. But once it dries, all your colour will come back again. So don't be scared, but it is really important that you seal your artwork so you don't smudge it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you really have a go at doing this because it's lots of fun. And remember to check out the artist in the link below. Bye for now.